Okay, so let's jump right in. We're going to be talking about Jason Stanley's book, Erasing History. And this explainer is all about a battle that isn't just fought on battlefields, but in our classrooms, our textbooks, and even our libraries.
Right from the get-go, the book does something pretty powerful. It connects this deeply personal story, the author's own family escaping Nazi Germany, to a much larger global political strategy. So this isn't some dry academic debate. It's framed as a fight that has very real, very human consequences.
And that really leads us to the central question of the entire book. Why schools? Why do education systems so often become the first and most important battleground when democratic values are under attack?
All right, so first things first, let's break down the strategy. To really get what's happening, the book argues we first have to understand the playbook, because these kinds of movements tend to follow a pattern that's surprisingly clear and repeatable.
Think about it, right? A healthy democracy is messy. It thrives on debate, on nuance, on seeing the world through different sets of eyes. But authoritarianism, well, it can't handle that. It needs one single, simple story. It needs a mythic past. And that's exactly why a complicated, honest history is its #1 enemy.
The book actually gives this tactic a name: educational authoritarianism. And this is key. It's not just a simple disagreement over what's in a textbook. It's defined here as a deliberate, top-down strategy to control a country's story by controlling what teachers are allowed to teach and what students are allowed to learn.
And that's why the classroom becomes ground zero. According to Stanley, by kicking certain stories out of the curriculum, the goal isn't just to control the past, it's to control the future.
Okay, so it gets even more specific. The book digs deeper and identifies this recurring pattern. It actually breaks down what it calls fascist education into 5 core themes that you see pop up again and again, across different times and different countries.
So you see these 5 points? The book argues they're basically a recipe. First, you create this mythic, heroic past. Then you identify one group as the true people of the nation. You erase any past wrongdoing, you enforce strict gender roles, and finally, you paint any and all opposition as a dangerous internal enemy. It's a formula.
And to show these themes aren't just theory, the book uses some pretty stark historical evidence. This quote from Hitler is, well, it's not subtle. It's a blunt, direct example of how education gets weaponized to enforce those strict gender roles, reducing a woman's entire purpose down to a single function for the state. This all feeds into a really powerful political tool that Stanley identifies as being central to these movements. It's an idea that combines those themes of national purity and vilification. It creates this constant nagging sense of emergency, this fear that the real nation is about to be wiped out by outsiders and traitors from within.
Now, here's a crucial point the book makes. This isn't just stuff that happened in the past. The argument is that this exact playbook is being used right now in various countries all around the world.
So just take a look at these examples. You can really see how the same tactics are adapted for different places. In Hungary, you see the curriculum rewritten to erase a Jewish Nobel laureate. In India, textbooks are changed to downplay Muslim rule. In the US, certain academic concepts are banned. The book argues that while the details change, the underlying goal is exactly the same: enforce one single nationalist story. And it doesn't just stop with textbooks. The book shows how this attack becomes much, much wider. It's a campaign against any institution that holds on to knowledge and offers different ways of thinking, from public libraries and museums all the way to scientific facts themselves. Okay, so after laying all of this out, the book doesn't just leave us with the problem. It pivots. It turns to what it presents as the antidote. This powerful, ongoing fight to reclaim history from those who want to erase it. Just listen to this quote. This is from a real American textbook, used in schools in 1957. It's shocking, right? But it's a perfect example of what's at stake. This isn't just getting a fact wrong. The book would say this is a deliberate erasure of human suffering, all to protect that myth of national innocence.
And this right here, this is the tug of war in a nutshell. On one side, you have the erased narrative, the myth that enslaved people were passive and were just given their freedom. But on the other, you have the reclaimed history from scholars like W.E.B. Du Bois, who showed that it was enslaved people themselves who were the primary drivers of their own liberation.
And what's really important to see is that this fight, it has a long, powerful history of its own.
It's not new. From a textbook on Black history written way back in 1841, all the way up to the 1619 Project today, there's this incredible tradition of resistance, of defiantly teaching the truth even when there's pressure not to.
This Toni Morrison quote just nails it, doesn't it? The act of deciding which stories matter, which books we teach, which heroes we celebrate, it's never a neutral act. As she says, it's a clash of cultures. It's always about power, and it's always about whose story gets to be the main one.
So, in the end, what this all comes down to is that pushing for a more honest and inclusive history isn't just about, being accurate for accuracy's sake. The book argues it's an essential act of democratic resistance. It's how you build what Stanley calls civic compassion, that ability to see the world from someone else's shoes, which is really the foundation of a working democracy.
And then Stanley brings it all home, right back to his own family. He points out that these big, sweeping histories aren't just abstract ideas. They are living, breathing legacies that all come together inside his own children. It's a reminder that out of many, one doesn't have to mean we all have the same story. It can mean honoring all the many stories that make us who we are.
So we're left with this really provocative idea. If history is a battleground and what we learn shapes who we become, then the fight over what's taught in our schools is really a fight for our identity. And it kind of forces you to ask yourself, who is writing your story? What myths have you been told? What truths might have been hidden? And whose voices are shaping the story you tell about yourself?